we have with us Dr. Sriram Vajapeyam, a very interesting personality who is going to talk to us on engaging alternative pedagogy for instilling Vivekananda ideals. Okay, Dr. Sriram did his PhD from Wisconsin-Madison in the world of computer science, joined the Indian Institute of Sciences faculty. That's when I kind of bumped into him and we have been friends since then. More importantly, he also worked at IBM, at Oracle, and he has some 10 US patents in the world of CPU architectures. You know, Intel has the processor designed with hyperscalar, mechanisms to speed up the computations, etc. In that world, he has some 10 patents. But more importantly, he is in the world of AI, the ChatGPT stuff. And he wants to see what can be done to bring the Indic version of it. So, what's more important is, he also is into trying to come up with newer pedagogic ideas to essentially help people learn effectively and efficiently. The Indic twist to it. Dr. Sriram, the stage is all yours for the next only 18 minutes. Please come.
Namaskara. So just to refocus, shall we start with a tiny exercise? Those of you who are comfortable. I'll tell you what it is. You just take 3 deep breaths, if possible, with your eyelids closed. Those of you who have learned pranayama, you can do Nadi Shodhana or alternate nostril breathing. And then I will repeat, I'll say what I'm going to say in this talk. Only those of you who are comfortable, it's not compulsory. Okay. 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. Keep your eyes closed if you're closed. In the next 18 minutes, we will hear examples of treasures in our Indian knowledge bases. Okay? Okay, now you can open your eyelids if you wish. Okay. Let me start by saying that there are a couple of famous talks. One, the Nobel laureate Richard Feynman gave a talk called "There is Plenty of Room at the Bottom." Okay, and that talk was given in 1959, and it led to nanotechnology, where people manipulate atoms and molecules and build nanorobots and things like that. There's another famous talk by Professor C.K. Prahalad, which is called "Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid," I think. Right, and he was a corporate strategy professor in the US. In his philosophy, Professor Prahalad pointed out that you can actually make products that target the poorest people rather than the richest people and still make a lot of money. So the commonality in these 2 talks is that they look for riches in places where people don't usually look for them, right? Okay, so in that spirit, but without claiming to be anywhere near any of those people, a good subtitle for my talk could be, there are plenty of treasures in our Indian knowledge bases for people of all ages. Okay? So, and in this talk, I'll try to give you a few examples of those treasures with the hope that by the end of the talk, whether you're a student or you're a teacher or anybody, you set off on a treasure hunt to find more treasures in our Indian knowledge bases. Okay? So that is the purpose of my talk. Okay. So, since this is about empowerment of youth, I'm going to talk in a very casual, informal manner. So, I hear that a lot of youth do not have a good idea of what they want to do or what they should be doing and things like that. Okay. Now, in Western psychology, Western psychology classifies personality types into 4 different categories. Okay, I discovered that when I was a PhD student. And there are online tests which have about less than 100 questions, multiple choice questions. If you answer them in 15 minutes, you can find out your personality type. Okay? And I've experimented with it. I took the test first when I was a PhD student. Then about every 5 years, I've retaken it just to see if the answer changes or not. It was remarkably accurate. And I've run it on a few friends who I have known for many years. It has been accurate. I ran it on a few students when I was managing some interns. Very accurate. There are 2 examples. There's the philosophy, the personality philosophy is called the Myers-Briggs personality types, MYERS, BRIGGS. Okay, and there's a more recent version of it called the Kiersey temperament sorter. There's a website called kiersey.com. If people take the test, right, whether you are a student, whether you are been working for 20 years, whatever it is, it gives you an insight into yourself as to what you're good at, what you naturally do, and what you're not good at, right? So, for example, there is the rational personality type, where a rational may be a person who architects systems. or a person who manages operations very well, masterminds operations. Right? An idealist could be a teacher, could be a champion. So, for example, maybe Swami Vivekananda was an idealist champion, okay, championing certain values, right? Then there are guardians who could be supervisors, inspectors, and things like that. Then there are artisans who could be, craftsmen, who could be artists, and things like that. So it helps a lot to know what your personality type is. Your personality type doesn't change, I think. It is like your DNA. So once you know your personality type, you can make a better decision. Should I become a teacher? Should I become a software engineer? Should I become whatever? So the alignment improves a lot, okay? And I wish I had used that test a lot more when I was managing a few people in companies, right? That is the Western psychology part. Now, interestingly, if you look at Indian psychology, right, there are, in the spiritual path, there are 4 paths, Bhakti Marga, Gnana Marga, Karma Marga, and Raja Marga, right? So again, there it is kind of based on your personality type. So if you're a very emotional kind of person, you can follow Bhakti Marga. If you're a very active, hands-on kind of person, you do Karma Marga. Though the karma meant there is different from what we normally interpret as karma, right? And if you're a very theoretical kind of person, then you do Gnana Marga. Raja Marga we'll talk about is more for introverted people. We'll talk about that later, right? So there are interesting analogies. So at least if people become aware that there are multiple paths in our spirituality, right? Then the personality, so nowadays everything gets personalized, right? You want personalized medicine, you want personalized education if possible, etc., right? So moment people become aware that there are different paths and you can choose what is suitable for your personality type, it's likely to get better acceptance, right? So this is a way of empowerment, I would think, right? Now let's look at, now that is as far as your personality type is concerned, okay? Now if you go to Ayurveda, right? There is this thing called pulse diagnosis or Nadi Pariksha, right? Where an Ayurvedic doctor who knows that science can check your pulse for 2 minutes and he can tell you first your body type. Apparently in Ayurveda they say that there are 3 body types. You can be a Pitta dominant person, Pitta is bile. You can be a Vata dominant person, Vata is gas. Or you can be a Kapha dominant person, Kapha is phlegm, okay? Now that is the nature of your body. But this also influences your thoughts, how you think, okay? Not just what thoughts you have, but how you think, how you operate, and things like that, right? That is one part. The second part now this is, so the distinction between Western psychology and our this Ayurveda personality types is that Ayurveda links your body type, which is your physical body type, to your mind. Okay, so it becomes a integration of the two, right? Now I'll share some experiences with you, okay, just to, so since this is in terms of empowering youth and talking about our own practical experiences. About 3-4 years ago, I was coaching a class 12 student for 2-3 of them. 2 of them girls wanted to write medical entrance exam and things like that. I had one student who, this was COVID time, so just strictly on the phone, no video either, just audio calls, right? And one of the students was very sincere, okay? But what I would find was while teaching, I'll be teaching mathematics, in the middle of it, suddenly some thought would come to her mind about a beach which was very close to her house. So then I was wondering, this student is very sincere, okay? And she's listening to what I'm teaching, but this is happening. I thought about it a little bit, then I told her mother, take her to an Ayurvedic doctor and get her body type checked out, okay? They did that, and it turned out she was a Vata body type. Vata because gas is dominant, okay? And what Ayurveda says is that if gas is dominant, the person's ability to concentrate is much less. The mind keeps hopping around a lot, okay? Then I checked out a little bit about what food she eats, okay? And I found, then I did a bit of research on the web, and the doctor also told her what to eat and all that. We corrected that. I told her what to eat. She followed, because she cooks her own, she's also good at cooking, I suppose. And there was dramatic improvement in her concentration abilities, okay? So you can use, so this is a way by which people can utilize the knowledge of their body types and their personality types to improve their performance, whether it is in studies or whether it's in other things, right? So this is a real example that I'm giving you, right? The next important thing here is by changing the student's food, right? Her mind, the workings of her mind changed. She was able to concentrate better. So what that tells us is food controls your, I mean, we all know that, but this is a practical example where food controls your mind, right? Another dimension to this is if you look at the Bhagavad Gita classifies food into sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic, right? I suppose Professor Yashwanath talked about that earlier, right? So if people become aware of that, right, then if you're a student, you want to eat sattvic food. If you're a soldier, maybe you want to eat rajasic food, whatever. But you can use that knowledge to improve your mental performance, right? In whatever you're doing, right? This also talks about the eating of junk food and all that. So students and whoever eats a lot of food outside should realize that food is a way of controlling your mind. So the more you go out and eat food which may not be sattvic or rajasic, whatever it is, you are letting people control your mind. Okay, and you can. The other thing is you should also do simple experiments with this yourself. Okay, so for example, there are some results which say that if eating a lot of onion and garlic tends to scatter the mind. Okay, now that may be okay for people who are past the student age, but for students it may not be. So very simple thing to try is either stop eating garlic for a few days, onion and garlic for a few days and see what happens to your mind, or eat a lot and see what happens to your mind. Right. So be active and experiment rather than just taking knowledge from reading from a book and memorizing and writing it out. That's all right. You do be practical about it. Right. Okay. So now we talked about the personality type, which is the mind, nature of the mind, and we talked about the body types, right? But we all know that, let's take an example of a student, right? A 20-year-old student. So when the student was in first standard, the thoughts in the student's mind would not have been the same as what it was at the age of 20, right? So if I ask you who you are and you're a 20-year-old student, then from this you will tell me, I'm not my mind, right? So in the Adi Shankaracharya philosophy, which I am a follower of, this is called iti na iti or neti. Means, so mind is, I'm not mind, na iti, neti, okay? Then if I ask you your body, are you your body, right? Of course, in first standard you are much shorter, now you're much taller, right? So it's not your body, okay? So you're not your mind, you're not your body. So therefore you're not your mind and body complex either, right? So what are you? Or who are you, okay? That's an interesting question. I mean, that's not a question for which you can answer all the time, but it is sufficient if the question at least enters your mind at this time, right? I'll just give you a small piece of motivation for that. I happen to have written a small book on Mahatma Gandhi, analyzing, how he took his decisions in life and what motivated him to take his decisions. And one of the very interesting statements that Mahatma Gandhi has made is that India's independence was not the most important thing that drove him in his life. How many of you will be shocked by that, right? He said, no, that's not the most important thing. For me, the most important thing is equivalent of Atmodhara. That is, I want to upgrade or enhance my soul, right? So when you ask yourself the question, who am I? Gandhiji said, I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, I'm the soul. And the purpose of the soul is to go from Jivatma to Paramatma, if you know the terminology. Otherwise, you can come to that later on, right? Okay. So we have reached, once you have understood your personality type, your body type, and you know that you're not your mind, you're not your body, right? And you're something else, you're probably in a better position if you're a youth to decide what you want to do, what kind of career you want to pursue, what you want to do in life, etc., etc. Now, having reached that stage, right, now I'll share a few examples, again from my own experience with teaching students and other things, where there are a lot of treasures in our knowledge base that we can utilize, okay. I'll start with, again, that student that I talked about, okay, who was a Vata personality type. Now, when she came to me, she said that for the last 6 years, she had never slept all through the night at all because she would have a lot of tension about exams and marks and all that. And especially before an exam, she said she would get up at 2 in the morning, okay, and start studying because she was so tense, right? I tried one very simple thing, okay. In yoga, they teach you what is called yoga nidra, okay. Its purpose is different, but fortunately, the student's mother knew yoga. So I asked the mother, when your daughter goes to sleep, you make her do yoga nidra and let her go to sleep, okay. So beginners, when they're learning yoga nidra, they will not do yoga nidra, they'll fall asleep in the middle, okay. And that's what happened with this student. But the next day morning, she calls me up and says, sir, yesterday I slept at 10 in the night, till 6 in the morning, I didn't know where I was. Okay, so in one day, yoga nidra had that kind of impact. Okay, but or incorrect or halfway practice of yoga nidra had that kind of impact. Okay, but if you are aware of the Bihar School of Yoga, right, it is the equivalent of IITs in yoga system. The Swami Satyananda Saraswati and Swami Niranjanananda Saraswati of Bihar School of Yoga, they've written many books on yoga. There's one book on Yoga Nidra. Okay? They reveal a very interesting incident there. Apparently, they had a student who was class 5 or class 6 student in the ashram there. And he was very unruly. He would not even sit through a full class, he would run out and things like that. Okay? And then the Swamiji decided to try one thing. When the boy was sleeping, okay, the Swamiji sat next to him, I believe, and read out something in Russian or Spanish or something, some language the kid did not know at all. After a few days or weeks of doing that, then the Swamiji, when the boy was awake one day, the Swamiji tested him, and that kid had picked up 40% of that language. And the kid did not know he was learning Russian. Okay? So you can imagine, so what Yoga Nidra does, this is just one example, it takes you to a state of alertness in your mind where you can grasp things much more effectively. So imagine if you are a student and you practice Yoga Nidra, you put on your audio of your whatever lecture you want to study or learn from, and you listen to it in the night, right? So this is just one example. There are many other examples. I'll just close with one example, okay? Personal example again. So when in my PhD days, right, we had a PhD qualifying exam, entrance exam, which was very difficult. Okay, only 50% of the students would pass, and at that time in the university where I studied, most of the Indians going there were all IIT students. So imagine even IIT students, some of them not getting through it, right? And we had a 4-hour depth exam, for which we had to prepare for a whole semester. Okay, and in the semester you read a lot of research papers, coordinate all of them, and you write the exam. And most people, what they will do is in that semester they'll dedicate the semester only to preparing for that exam, nothing else. Okay, and then you have to write 2 breadth exams, which are like subject exams, 2-hour exams each. I did something different. What I did was, in the semester that I prepared, that I was registered for that exam, I signed up for a karate class. Okay, and the karate, it was intense because you do a 3-hour class. At the end of it, you could just fall dog dead right there or go to sleep, right? And I also registered for an extra breadth exam also, one depth exam and a breadth exam, or the 2 exams in the same semester. And all my friends were thinking something has gone wrong with this guy, okay? But at the end of it, it worked, and I actually passed, okay? And the reason is very simple. Somewhere Swami Vivekananda has said, youth should also play football, right? In addition to reading the Gita or something like that. The trick is very simple. Doing these kinds of activities also improves the functioning of your brain, right? This is physical activity. You also have left brain and right brain activity. So for example, if you alternate reading physics or maths with practicing music or studying English or Sanskrit languages or whatever, you can alternate that, read in that way. You're alternating the use of your left brain and right brain. You again improve the functioning of your brain. Okay? So like this, there are many treasures in our Indian knowledge base. I hope the few samples that I have given here will motivate people to set off on a treasure hunt, okay, and find more treasures for yourself. Yeah, and thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sriram. We are all on the treasure hunt now. Okay, it's important for us to know that there's been a lot of treasures being thrown at us over the last few hours by each of the speakers, right? And like he rightly said, it is for us to hunt it, take a benefit from it, and then, of course, not to be selfish, to keep the treasure to yourself, but to share it. And more so, the fact that this is a place where teachers have to learn in order to give, right? And there's also this adage, the best way to learn something is to teach it. Okay, so Dr. Sriram, thank you so much for sharing with us the alternative pedagogies for instilling Vivekananda values, and more importantly, thanks for coming over from Surat, Bangalore. Okay, he has been traveling and then he came here, and then now he's going off to Mangalore. So thanks a lot. On behalf of the Vivekananda Janoththana Trust and Amma institutions, we'd like to extend a hearty thanks. And please accept this. Yeah. Our photographer is always